Hello.
Hello. Thanks for coming on. I'm just sending out the invites real quick.
Okay.
All right. I think I'm set. Gabriella, thanks for coming on with me. Thanks for making some time and to come on and talk to us today.
Yeah.
How was training today?
It was good. I went in the morning. So I'm trying to balance everything out. So I had to leave early today.
Yeah, it's hard to balance everything that's going on when you're running a gym, and you're doing that and a bunch more, which is why I'm glad I could get you on here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about first about maybe what you're doing on the business side, and then what you're doing on the jiu-jitsu side.
Sure. So in the business side, I co-own Carlson Gracie Jiu Jitsu with my husband. He's a 6 degree black belt from Brazil, and I met him, and he asked me to get on board with him, so I did, and I do all the administrative stuff. I work with the employees. I do HR. Um, I do all the events, all the planning, and get the team organized for tournaments and whatnot. I get them sponsorships, so I get a lot done that way.
That's awesome. And when I was looking at some of your other posts, you were named this year's one of this year's top 40 under 40 honorees. That was really cool to see, just the different people on that list, and what you're doing aside from the gym life.
Yeah, so I was telling my husband that's actually a pretty big deal, especially in the business and finance world. So I've been insurance for a little over 12 years, and uh, so I just slowly climbed my way up there, and that was more for my obviously my what I do for the community, um, in the insurance industry, advocating and helping people understand why they need insurance. So yeah, that was pretty neat. When they contacted me, I couldn't believe it. I was like, uh, what? But yeah, that was pretty neat.
And how long have you been in that industry?
For over 12 years now. So
Awesome. And how long have you been training jujitsu?
for 4 years. Prior to that, I was in wrestling for in middle school, high school, and college. And when I got pregnant in college, I stopped wrestling. But I always, and then I was a green belt in karate. So I kind of always loved the martial arts, and just the way it came when I moved to Albuquerque, and I met Professor Souza, who's now my husband. It was just natural to me.
Yeah, usually wrestling translates really, really well to jujitsu. And if you've got a grappling background, then it makes it easy to grasp a lot of the concepts.
Mhm.
So, how that's a lot to take on training and running a gym. I mean, you already had some grappling experience, but did you ever see yourself running that side of things?
No, because I also have two teenage kids, and at that point, it all. I I'm trying to focus on my career. I'm trying to stay healthy. I'm in my 30s. It does. It got a little overwhelming for me in a lot of different ways, especially because my husband is my professor, and he doesn't have favorites, so he expects a lot from me. Um, And there's so many expectations being a part owner of the gym and being the professor's wife. I think everybody expects so much from you. Like you have to be at the gym every day. You have to compete. Are you good? And so it is. I think out of everything, the pressure is what stresses me out the most. Believe it or not.
No, I absolutely believe it. And again, I think I've said it before. One of the things I tell my competitors, especially the people who get into it and start competing really early, and a lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to perform and to do good at this sport. But my number one advice is always, continue to have fun. Don't
Mhm.
allow the game to start feeling like work or causing you anxiety. Above all, it should be fun.
Yes. Yeah, so when I got my purple belt, I went through a little, well, right towards the end of my blue belt, it's called the blue belt blues, and
Yeah,
it really did hit me, and, I had to find the fun of it again. So jujitsu for me is self-defense, and it's keeping I'm a heavyweight female, but so it's finding my purpose again within my body, the way what it does. Even though I'm a little chubby, it can do this, and I can still um, choke someone out. And finding the purpose as to why I started jujitsu really helped me get out of those blue belt blues and going into my purple belt.
that's great. What did get you into jujitsu? Because you said you did wrestling in high school, right?
hmm So when I moved to Albuquerque, I was in a 15-year relationship, and um, I was a domestic violence survivor. And when I moved to Albuquerque, everybody said it's going to be dangerous or whatever. Wait, so 2 weeks in, I got this constant. I was diagnosed with PTSD, so I had this constant fear, and I have my concealed carry, but it's just I just needed to feel more prepared. Anyway, so it's just funny how things work. My husband reached out to me, and I thought, oh, look, he owns a martial arts gym. I was looking for self defense. At that point, I didn't know about jujitsu. I knew wrestling, boxing, and kickboxing. And he was like, of course, he asked me out and he told me what he did. And when I first saw my kids started jujitsu first, and when I first saw what they were doing on the mat, um, it brought back a little bit of flashbacks for me whenever I was going through a traumatic experience, and it just clicked. I just thought jujitsu is the best form of self-defense. And if I knew how to get someone in a triangle, I think I would have avoided less injury to my head. If I knew how to do certain things that I know how to do now, I think I could have avoided more injuries that I obtained during my what happened to me. So, and then I just fell in love with jujitsu, and I said, I want to do this, of course, for fitness and for self defense reasons.
That's awesome. I mean, just to hear that and to know that it can be applicable to people who have gone through that. I feel like it's the most applicable of the martial arts, but really to hear that from someone who's gone through it is really eye opening.
Mhm. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, the first 3 months I asked if I could start in the kids program, because they were all adult males. They had like one other female that was in and out, but so I actually started with the kids, and I cried on the mat. I tried the women that we have now. We have over 28 women now in our team, um, and we're just emotional people. Especially, we have so many things going on in our lives, and I had to be easy on myself because I am my biggest critic. So I cried on the mat, and I thought, oh my gosh, they're gonna think I'm a big baby. But we have a good team.
Yeah, you had mentioned that. So when you started, there weren't any other women, and I know we've already talked about that with some of our women, how we're building that group as well.
hmm
uh, and it takes a lot of courage to really step into that environment, to be outnumbered by people who might not understand what you're going through, but to stick it through and keep training and continue to learn is amazing.
hmm Yes.
So you said you have 28 women now in your school.
Yes, we do. And it was one of when one of our other moms came in, it was one of our first priorities is we need to get more moms and more women. And I hadn't shared my story yet or my pictures, and my husband was like, I think if you there's so many women that go through different types of situations. I think if you share your story, it'll make them feel a little bit more comfortable, and knowing that that they'll be okay, and sport is for everyone, regardless of whatever you've been through. So I think when I shared what happened, we had so many come forward, and just to reassure them that our team is not there, specifically our men, they're not there to hurt you. Or I think there's so much um like, oh, they're gonna hurt me, or no, your male athletes, your male teammates are not there to hurt you at all whatsoever. And so that was it was a lot of reassuring these women, like, they're not going to hurt you, you're going to be okay. um and then I had so many women saying, how do you, because in the no-gi, right, does your belly hang? That's the last thing you're thinking about, whenever you're grappling. But
Yeah, whenever someone's trying to choke me, how I look is definitely low on the priority list.
exactly. So I think for women, it was a lot of reassurance, because that's just how we are. We need a lot of, like, it's going to be okay. Really, it is. So,
That's awesome, and that's good to know. I struggled when I took over and started teaching kids. That was definitely a challenge for me. And same thing with women when we have the women's only classes, and when we're drilling, you guys just approach this learning the sport in a different way than men do. I think, and I've had to adjust the way I teach to make sure that I can accommodate that.
yeah. And my husband is very old school. Again, he's from Brazil. They hardly had any back in the day, any women training. So he's very tough. He doesn't see gender. He wants to see us like the guys. So, we've had a lot of women that, they have little minor panic attacks, and they just cry. And he again, the old school jujitsu practitioner in him is like, what's going on? So I have to step in and say, we're just different. We have a lot in our minds. We have a lot of stressful situations during the day, and we just let it just let us cry for a little bit, but we'll be okay. And so it's taken a lot for him to adjust to.
Yeah, and you know what? I appreciate that women can be vulnerable like that. I see it in the children and in the women. I know guys will definitely hold it back, and I've never seen really a guy cry on the mat. But I'm telling you, we get the same feelings because I've
Mhm.
left driving myself home at night wanting to cry because I just got my ass kicked all day at jiu-jitsu. Um, but I think the environment that the sport creates is so welcoming enough to where you can do that and still feel comfortable and still feel accepted by your peers. And I think a lot of gyms have done a really good job, yours included, of creating that atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's taken a lot of work. I have to try to explain to people, we have to prioritize our healthy environment before anything. So sometimes it feels like we're doing something that, not necessarily everybody agrees with, but you have to keep the sanity and the health and wellness of the gym, mentally and emotionally. Um, yeah. But that's big of you to admit to wanting to cry on your way home, or not wanting to cry, but at least feeling some sort of way.
Well, yeah, I was just, yeah, and we've all had it. I know guys joke about it, but
Yeah.
we all have times when, wow, I think I'm good at this sport, or I'm doing really well, and then you just there for maybe weeks at a time, you're just getting demolished, and it's a big ego check.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, that's for sure. Even, me coming in from, um, the level that I am in my professional world, and environment, coming in and just getting my butt kicked by 16-year-olds, I'm like, "Ah." But, it's very humbling.
It is. And you know what? So this is just my observation, and I don't know you as a gym owner, the demographic or the type of people that you see come through your business. But I've always said with us, we appeal a lot to the university, to the college students, to law enforcement, and then of course professionals, like yourself,
Mhm.
doctors, lawyers, executives. Those seem to be some of the biggest groups of people that kind of flock to jujitsu.
Yeah, so jujitsu is also, of course, it's very physical, but I think it stimulates our mind in a different level. So, I'm a sales executive, so every day I'm talking to people, every day my brain feels fried, but it's a different kind of thinking than when I get on the mat. I have to be strategic, I have to be calm, I have to really think about what I'm doing um, so it's a different kind of challenge for, I think, people like us, or especially, university students.
Yeah, and I think that the type of people that enjoy that type of mental stimulation really come in and fall in love with jujitsu. I've seen it time and time again.
Mhm. Yes.
And we got the chance to visit your gym a couple of weeks ago, and man, I just have to tell you, I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. It was beautiful. The people were nice. I could tell you've got a very good group of people, and probably put on one of the finest seminars that I've attended.
Thank
So
you.
hats off to you on that one. It was a really great time.
Thank you. It's taken some time. So when my husband came, he came from Brazil, and it was he was running a successful gym, but he doesn't know the business side of it. So and he was in a different location and whatnot, but he didn't have insurance. It wasn't an LLC. So we work really well together. He knows jujitsu and he knows martial arts very, very, very well. And then I bring in the business side of it to make sure that everyone is just everything is where it needs to be, so he can continue to run his business. Someone said, "You guys work well together. You clear the road for him so he can continue to do what he wants to do." So, a lot of this is it's his dreams, his goals, and um, I just tell him what we need to get done, and it gets done. And as for the group of people, it's taken a very long time. Um, you have to sometimes weed out the bad apples, and it causes a lot of friction and a lot of issues. But the end result is you have a good environment for everyone to train in.
Yeah, and I got to meet your husband, Professor Souza, and just talking to him, I could tell he's got a lot of passion for the sport, for jujitsu, not even just as a sport, but as a martial art, and that was really evident. And I've seen the husband and wife tandem just time and time again, and it works over and over, whether it's Arizona or Texas or New York. Me and my wife has a big plays a big role in the gym and it running the way it does. So the
I
women
love your
behind,
wife.
yeah, she's awesome, and
Mhm.
the women behind the men, when it comes to running a successful gym, are the unsung heroes. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, my husband has a very cut and dry type of personality. I mean, you're either there or you're not. You either like the gym or you don't. And I think we bring in more of an understanding or an empathetic point of view. So
And
yeah.
that's essential, to really bring in a diverse group of people, because that's what you want.
Mhm.
You want a really diverse group of people practicing to bring light to the sport. It makes it better. It enriches it, definitely.
Yes.
Once again, thank you again for coming on with me. This is about the time I open up the mics. I know we've talked a lot about women in jiu-jitsu, and we have a few women in here who practice jiu-jitsu. But I'd like to open up the mics. Um, if anyone has anything to say or would like to make a comment or ask a question. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and to kind of tell a little bit of your story for us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I think this is great that you're doing this, by the way.
We've been having a lot of fun, and it's just a great way to highlight, the people in the sport and the people behind, who we see during class time. I've got a couple
Mhm.
more people from Albuquerque scheduled this week, but we're definitely going to keep on doing it as much as we can.
Yeah. I heard your podcast, the 420. Who was he? I forgot what his name was. But I liked how he said everybody is, we're different, but we all share that one uh, love for jujitsu.
Yeah, that was the guy from Alamo, a really good friend of mine,
Yeah.
and just bringing people across the state together
Hmm.
and seeing that we're all kind of going through the same thing so that we can support each other because it gets hard. It's a long
Hmm.
journey, and you can definitely experience some ups and downs.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Katy. Nice to meet you. I think that the entirety of like the energy you brought today has been really great to hear. It's always wonderful to hear women come and speak honestly and truthfully about their experiences. I'm a blue belt. I've done martial arts for a pretty long time. I started in karate as a kiddo. My husband's a second dan black belt in karate, and also a blue belt in jiu-jitsu along with me. And you said something earlier that really spoke volumes. And I think it's so true. I had my first panic attack ever on the mats as a two-stripe white belt, and it was crazy because I own my own business. I'm getting my master's degree at MSU, and I own my own photography studio. And I think the shift, the transition between going from that as like a powerful woman, right? Like I have my
Hmm.
degree, I have all of these people that like I'm working on this huge project with New Mexico State right now, and then I own my own business, and then that transition to where you're on the mat and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm being crushed by these people it's something I've had a hard time putting into words. So I appreciate you kind of speaking on that and talking, and it's true. Like it's just one of those things where it's a really cool experience to have, honestly. Um,
Yes, it is. It's very humbling, for sure. Especially
oh, mhm.
so. I'm like, I'm the chingona in the house. Like, how is, yeah.
It's it's different, man. Like but it's good. And like I also like how you speak about having working alongside your husband, but let me tell you, being coached by your husband. So my husband Chad
Oh,
and I
yeah.
started training together. Oh man, that's the thing is I have really high standards for myself, right? And he
Mhm.
has really high standards for me. And that was a learning experience all of myself too. And I know Jackie can say the same. Mark, you have to like turn off your ears for a second. You can't hear this.
Oh, no
But
worries.
it's a
He
whole
can hear this.
it's a whole nother world. And I did not realize that. And I feel bad because like anyone else, like there was one time Mark kneeled on my hair and I like didn't even think of it, right? I was like, oh, it's whatever. Like I got long hair, it's fine. My husband kneeled on my hair and I was like, are you kidding me right now? Like, is this a joke? Is this what we're doing today? So totally different experience. And I'm glad I'm not the only one that has that
Oh, yeah, or,
experience.
like, when you have to go home and hear about it, because my husband is so passionate about jujitsu, and he's so hard on me. He's gotten way better through the years where I'm like, "Can you just stop?" But, when we come home and he was like, "Oh, well, you're doing really, really good, but you could have done this." And I'm just like, oh, it just the professor and the husband, sometimes I'm like, I need you to separate the two, and I need you to just be here for my husband as my husband, and stop trying to coach me right now. And
Oh,
he's learning that.
yes. Preach it.
Yeah.
Preach it, sister.
Yes.
Oh, Jackie, what do you feel about this?
Well, I do agree. As far as rolling with Mark and having those matches happen, I think I get harder on myself than he does. I feel like I have higher expectations of what I think I should be, and I think most of us do, anyways. So for me, rolling with Mark is it's definitely a fight. It's definitely me wanting to prove like something. I'm good enough. I'm strong enough. But he always, and Katy, you know this. He always, gives great advice. He gives me great opportunities. He helps me through doing it. He's not always just hard on me. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. My husband's getting to that level where he's he's being, and I don't think, I just think it's who he is. He's been doing this for so long, and he's never really been with his student. And again, I wasn't his student before we got married, but so I think he's just learning how to separate the two.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big part of it. I think that for me and Mark, that is something that we've grown to understand. He's definitely always been romantic and sweet and everything like that. But for him to find that softer side to that whole thing you were talking about, where you know what, girls just cry sometimes, and you just have to let us cry. Sometimes we don't want to roll. Sometimes we just want to talk about rolling. You just have to
Yes.
let us do that. Like it's like a slumber party for us. Okay, we don't know what we're gonna do, but we're gonna have fun.
Yeah.
And that's, it's different when you have a women's class. It's very different from men. Men is just, okay, what do I do? Okay, step one, step two, go, and that's it. But for women, sometimes it's like, you know what, I had a rough day. Can I kind of just talk about it a little bit, and then can we start
Yes.
kind of rolling and kind of getting into it there? I just kind of need a girlfriend right now. And
Yes.
sometimes that's just what it is. And Mark's done great at understanding that and learning it more and more and more. So it's definitely amazing to be able to have other women that understand that.
Mhm. Yeah, and my girlfriend, like the only friends I have are my girls in jujitsu because we spend so much time together. And sometimes I just, like you said, I just want to tell them I had a bad day, or, and what happened and or whatever. And they're there for me because they understand, or my kids are misbehaving, or I got a call from school, or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure on that.
I think like of all of the martial arts I've done, jujitsu has brought, like y'all are both exactly right. Jujitsu has brought such a uniqueness in that, in all honesty, I really do think that it's a really almost in a way intimate martial art. And that's because you spend so much time and
Yeah.
you are so close to one another. Like you cannot have lady drama in a BJJ gym because you are literally strangling each other and it's just not going to fly.
Right.
And
Exactly.
we have such a strong team, man. Like I love the ladies I work with, and poor Mark. Like shout out to Mark. I was the only girl going to the morning classes for a hot minute, and this poor man's had to deal with me. I'm like, Mark, listen, there's no ladies in this class, so I'm gonna vent to you. He's all, I appreciate that so much. But it really is, man. Having a strong women's team has been such a blessing. Like I love my girls. I think Jacquie is amazing. Jacquie coaches the women's classes, the women's ski classes, and it's awesome. It's so cool to be able to learn from her. Like, so shout out to Jacquie.
Yes.
She's
Thank
awesome to learn
you.
from. And yeah, it's such a pleasure, man, having such an awesome team.
So we've traveled around the country for different seminars, and when I got back from Zia Jiu Jitsu, from Jacquie and Mark's class, I told my husband, out of all the gyms that we've traveled to, this one is by far my favorite. The energy there, she was laughing, we were making jokes, but we were still learning. It wasn't like, let's try to prove something to this Carlson Gracie girl. It was very natural, and it was beautiful, quite frankly. She wasn't snotty, he wasn't snotty. It was awesome.
Thank you. That was, yeah, it's, we love it, just having people down, getting to meet the different people that come through. I've only been in this for, 5 or 6 years, so I'm just understanding the whole culture and the diversity of people. We have people stop in from Colorado, from California, so it's great to see how other people are doing it. And it's sad to think that, at other gyms, there is a kind of standoffish mentality and like, oh, well, we've got to prove that, our jujitsu is better than their jujitsu.
Mhm.
And that you lose a lot of appreciation for the art when you think about it like that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say also, Katie's panic attack on the mat was also my panic attack on the mat, because learning to coach women in this kind of competitive atmosphere where people get hurt. I think the two ones that stand out to me are as definitely Katie's knee and Libby's chin. So I mean, uh,
Oh my gosh, that's right.
yeah. So I mean, it's definitely been a challenge. And Katy, hats off for being a trooper and continuing through everything that you go through in this sport.
Thank you. To give a little context to my knee, I so I have done karate for maybe 8 or 9 years. I love it, but I have a grappler brain. So just a heads up there. But when I did karate, I tested for my brown belt and I had to fight 4 black belts at once. Like full 10 round of sparring, no breaks, no nothing. Like they were just beating me up for a full 10 minutes. And it was my right knee and I went to block a kick and my sensei kicked my kneecap off. He gave me 2 minutes to push it back on and get water, which was like unheard of for these belt testings. Normally, like you'd never stopped. So I pushed it back on. I went to a very, very intense dojo. Pushed it back on and kept fighting. And luckily, I was young enough to where it healed up pretty fine. But because I had injured that right knee, my left knee, like I had strengthened my left knee a lot because I had babied my right knee so much. So we're drilling one day, and I'm a very squeamish person. I do not do dislocations very well. Little Katy did. Adult Katy does not. And we were doing mount escape drills, and I was partnering with someone, and his hands had slipped down from my thigh and moved to my left kneecap. And poor guy, instead of pushing on my thigh, had pushed on my kneecap and literally pushed my kneecap off. And poor Mark, I'm like laying there and I'm like looking at my knee, which is now in like 2 separate pieces. And I'm like looking down, and I'm Mark, what's going on? And he's like looking at it, and he literally, it's so funny because he put on this like steel face, right? Like he's like looking all like serious coach mode, and I'm not used to that. I was like, what's going on? Like, am I dying? Do I need to call my husband? It took him 2 tries to get my kneecap back on. So shout out to Mark for keeping his cool and being a super good coach and getting my kneecap. But yeah, that was a learning experience for everyone for sure. It was a wild time.
Yeah, it can be really, really hard. I mean, the training can get intense, and everybody wants to stay safe. But at the end of the day, it's a combat sport, and it's hard to balancing staying healthy and training is probably something we should have a whole episode on. So, I'll hand that off to Katy, and she's probably gonna. Hopefully, I bring her on. She can start screenwriting these episodes.
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. I'd love to.
But yeah, I just want to thank you guys again. Gabriella, thank you for taking the time out. Coyote BJJ up there in Albuquerque, Carlson Gracie. You guys were awesome. I loved it. You were so welcoming. The gym was beautiful. The seminar again was great. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to come and talk to us and stepping on the mat with us. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right, guys. Have a good night. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Bye. Thank you, Gabby.
You're welcome.
Bye. Have a good one.
You
Bye.